mass desertion. Ah, okay, we've got the real one. I thought he was just leaving. The next deputations by appointment are in relation to Ruapuna noise management. Sara, sorry, didn't see that. Sara Harnett from Quieter, please. And then there's two others as well.
I didn't declare any interest, but it's coming up in the
feel free to do so.
In the PX agenda, but I have a conflict of interest with this subject, so I'll.
So you won't take any part.
Won't take part.
Right. Okay. Sara and I'm sorry, I don't know. Frank and
John.
Frank and John. Welcome. I think you know the rules. 10 minutes is the usual period of time, and that tends to include questions. Just so that councillors are aware, this item is being dealt with today. It's in public excluded, so just be a wee bit cautious, and Peter's here if you're not sure whether the question should be asked in open meeting or not. But thank you, Sara, Frank and John. We're in your hands.
Good morning. Plan Change 52 was promulgated as a direct consequence of the previous city plan in 1995, which became operative in 1999. Ruapuna's rules were then changed to allow motorsport to operate 7 days a week from 9 a.m. till 11 p.m. for 200 days, 9 a.m. till midnight for 15 days, and 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. for the rest of the time. Noise levels were 80 LEQ and 95 L max for 200 days, and for the rest of the time 90 L max and 65 LEQ. For 5 of those days there were no noise limits. Back in 1995, anybody looking at the new proposed rules, 120 days of use for example, would have seen a very benign proposed set of rules. However, the submissions from the car clubs, all on record, contain phrases such as "we like noise and the more noise the better," "half of the fun of motorsport is the noise," and the rest is history. Consequently, operations at Ruapuna were much more commercially driven on what is a public reserve. One does not need to be a noise expert to see that this was a recipe for disaster. The World Health Organization recommends for non-continuous noise 45 LEQ and 65 L max respectively. Noise levels at the closest dwellings receive sound levels exceeding 65 LEQ and 95 L max across many hours a day, and frequently on weekends when people are at home and entitled to some rest and relaxation. This is a community which, when you think about it, hosts a motor racing track, and you can bet your bottom dollar that nobody else is putting up their hand to do that. There has been a primary school in Templeton on its present site for 140 years. The children at that school spend their days with a background of noise, especially in summer months. When they get home, they listen to it for another 3 or 4 hours, and on weekends in the summer, they fight to sleep over the noise of Speedway on weekends. Their parks are swamped by noise from the track, and on a bad day, or with the right wind direction, they get to listen to it when they go to Hornby Moor with their parents. Everyone has an opinion on Ruapuna, irrespective of the level of factual information. Ruapuna was there first as a common cliche. For the record, 3 of the property owners who were bought out by the council in 2009 were there before the car club. However, this tit-for-tat over who was or wasn't there first does not negate the necessity to comply with Section 16 of the RMA, duty to avoid unreasonable noise. Every occupier of land shall adopt the best practicable option to ensure that the emission of noise from that land does not exceed a reasonable level. Included in the Christchurch City Council Corporate Environmental Policy Statement 26 November 1997 are: promote environmental care through the Council's influence over others. Prevention is better than cure. It is always preferable to prevent an environmental problem emerging than to try to clean up afterwards. Polluter pays principle. The organisation or individual responsible for an environmental threat shall bear the cost of cleaning up or of prevention. Equal priority principle. The protection of the environment ranks equally with other business activities. How does Ruapuna compare with other racetracks? In a nutshell, shamefully. For example, Western Springs has 14 days permitted use a year. I have attached the consents for a number of other racetracks in New Zealand. After a great deal of pressure from residents, Plan Change 52 was first notified in 2012. During this process, a noise logger was installed on Ruapuna's boundary. Data from that logger indicates that despite Ruapuna's extremely liberal rules, it is unlikely they have been complying for the past 10 years. They are currently non-complying. Bizarrely, if the plan change is withdrawn and is inserted into the district plan, this may mean that the benchmark is lifted to enable Ruapuna to continue as they have been. No doubt you will hear the argument that it is not possible for the car club to reduce their operation. Keep in mind then that Ruapuna operated for 40 years with 120 days at 65 L max. Those were the days when neighbours and Ruapuna lived in harmony before the need for buyouts and plan changes. No doubt you will hear the argument that Ruapuna is a community facility. Keep in mind then that to hire the facility, the public reserve, for a day in the summer cost $3,000, something I would suggest that most community and sports groups cannot afford. It has become an elitist facility. How many of you have been out to our area to see just what we're putting up with? We encourage you to spend a weekend in the area around the track. This is not a small noise problem. We all have far better things to do with our lives than spending time and money banging on about a small amount of noise. If this was a small amount of noise, we'd all be home now getting on with our lives the way we used to do. This noise has become so intrusive and so constant that we need to get it sorted out now rather than putting up with it for the next 20 years. The Council has done a great job at enabling a certain future for motorsport activities at Ruapuna. Residents, however, have received the message that they almost deserve the noise. And if nothing else, this plan change is a step in seeking justice, forcing the Council to do the right thing. Quieter Please does not want this plan change withdrawn at the 11th hour. We have spent a great deal of time, energy and money in getting to this point, and I would encourage you to ask council officers how many millions of ratepayer dollars have been spent by you on lawyers, consultants, experts, meetings, buyouts, etc., etc. We recommend not withdrawing Plan Change 52. Thanks.
Very much, Sarah. Was there anything else, or shall I just take questions now?
Just questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone? Just Raf?
Yeah, hi, thanks for that. And you mentioned Western Springs having 14 days a year. How does that compare to Ruapuna now?
Well, as I said at the start, they can operate 356 days.
Is that
365.
unusual?
It is very unusual.
So are there any other racetracks around the country that have that?
Well, I have attachments there. We go to Cromwell was the probably one of the newer racetracks. They have a maximum of 16 days motor racing annually. There's also attachments for Levels and Manfield. Both of those tracks have categories, so they have, well, for example, here Manfield Park, Category A, 20 days at 90 max, then goes down to 80 days at 80 max, and Category C is 65 max for the rest of the time. And then
So what are you looking for from this plan change?
What Quite a Please are looking for is reduced days, reduced noise levels, and reduced hours. That's it in a nutshell.
So how many days?
Well, we haven't got a figure, but it can move a long way from every day of the year. At the moment, you know, it's under court process, and
But you feel that you're making progress in the mediation process?
well, I can't really talk about
Okay,
what
I won't
happened
ask
in
you.
mediation, but
It's all right. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Pauline?
Ref, what sort of hours would you be looking at? Because you're saying at the moment they go to 11 p.m.
well, they can. These are the rules.
They can.
These are the rules.
And what?
The hours that we would be looking at, as well as reduced days and with reduced noise levels, we would be looking at business hours, 9 to 5, and in the weekend, 9 to 6 at least. I mean, at the minimum.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One last question, Phil.
Just like a wee bit of clarity about the mediation thing. Clearly you've been working through that. Is that still a possible way, or say through some further or different mediation, is that still a possible way for this to be resolved for you?
It depends on the will of both parties, I guess, and I emphasise both parties.
So from your perspective, is it possible?
Well, it also depends on whether Plan Change 52 is withdrawn and then it becomes null and void, but it may be possible.
Okay. Very last question.
I think the question from Councillor Clearwater was, if we don't withdraw Plan Change 52 and we keep it in, are you still open to going through further mediation to try and resolve the issues?
I'd have to talk to our lawyer,
Right, okay.
or I can comment on that.
Okay.
Okay. Go for it, Pauline.
I just want to know how many members you have in your group and what the representation is.
Well, it's a residents group, Quite a Please, and it's... Well, when Plan Change 52 was first notified, there were 44 submissions. 41 of those were against what had been notified. In our group, I guess there's 15, but this has been going on for 10 years. It affects the township of Templeton. It affects Yalthurst residents. The Yalthurst residents put in a submission as well. And when it's been going on that long, of course, you come down to a few people doing most of the work.
Okay.
So you think it'd be about 15 active members now who are...
In the resident, but they were not necessarily the people that submitted. So there were people in Templeton who submitted, there were people in Yalthurst who submitted, and they don't necessarily belong to Quite a Please, but they are interested in Ruapuna.
Okay. Thank you for coming again. Thank you. And we're going to listen to the other two deputations, but the item is obviously in public excluded, so I can't take it next, because it means clearing out the chamber, and you can't get to watch it anyway, so it's no help to you. Okay?
public excluded in public? Because this did come up at the panel, and when we previously withdrew plan changes, we did it in public.
Mike, do you
Is
want
that
to
possible?
answer that?
The reason why it's public excluded is because obviously there's a live environment court case. There's continuing activity before the council in the environment court, or potentially in the environment court, or potentially in mediation. Therefore, it's NPX so that council can have take privileged legal advice on the course of action it should take.
Whereas, and the difference
Thank you.
between the other plan changes were that they weren't in front of the environment court.
That
Yes.
would be correct if that's the case.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got currently a live case, so that's why it's in front of
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Thanks, John. Okay,